Hello, everyone. This is Paul Ward from Ventura County, California, and you're listening to the 15 Minutes with Paul Ward podcast, where I put together 20 years of real estate experience to use, answering questions about the industry and interviewing experts who work in real estate-related industries. If you love real estate or an uncommon look at Ventura County, you'll love this podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Paul. Today we're talking about home and property estimates from online real estate marketplaces, sometimes referred to as estimates, and how they can sometimes be outrageously wrong.
And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Opus Escrow and the Money Store.
Great. Well, I'm excited to discuss how online real estate marketplaces like Zillow, for example, can get pricing fairly right or very wrong. You've been a realtor as long as Zillow has been around. How do these estimates work, and how do you evaluate whether they are correct or not?
Sure. Well, I look at Zestimates as a tool, but not as a final answer for your home's value. So it's kind of funny how sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, Paul, Zillow or Zestimate says my home is worth 750," and I'll think that's interesting, but is it really worth 750? Is it worth 800? Is it worth 690? Those you have to dive deeper to really see what the value is. So it's just simply a tool.
Okay. What are some criteria that Zillow looks at or online marketplaces look at?
Sure. Well, Zestimates are put together using a computer algorithm.
Okay.
So Zillow takes into account the size of the home, the age of the home, the size of the parcel where the home sits. And so all of that data for homes that have sold in the area, in the small geographic area around the house, are kind of mushed together to come up with a home valuation. And
Okay.
so, if you live in a $750,000 neighborhood and homes are selling in that general price range, not 2 million, then Zillow's going to say, okay, your house is worth 750. So that's kind of how they come up with a quote unquote single number value.
Nice. Can you give an example of information that online marketplaces may not have?
Sure. So if you remodeled your kitchen within the past 2 years, Zillow's not going to know that. The Zestimate valuation's not going to know that. Did the other homes that sold in your neighborhood, did they all remodel their kitchen in the past 2 years? Or are they, cooking in a kitchen from 1985, right? Your home is going to be worth more than the other homes that have sold if you remodeled your kitchen and the other homes that sold did not. So that's something that you kind of need to know to come up with a value for your home. If Zestimate says your house is worth 750 and you just spent $100,000 on your kitchen and the other homes that sold did not remodel, then the number's off.
Right. How have interest rates, like the recent increase in interest rates, how is that playing a part?
Well, the interest rates have had a dramatic impact on real estate. During COVID, homes were selling in a matter of days. Interest rates were historically low. Even some folks even got rates below 3%. Now rates are above 6%. So that's having an impact on values. So if Zestimate says your house is worth 750, you kind of have to go back and look and see, when did the last homes in the neighborhood sell, right? If your neighbor got 50,000 over asking during COVID, and you put your home on the market today, you're not going to get 50,000 over asking. So, prices are starting to come down, and so we have to take that interest rates into account when determining value. And so if homes that have sold recently can be looked at, for the Zestimate, but if the last sale was over 6 months ago, then, the accuracy of that Zestimate is going to be off somewhat.
Interesting. Why would a local realtor, in your case, someone in Ventura County, how would they be able to provide a better estimate for your home or property?
Sure. Well, a local realtor should know the homes that have sold in the neighborhood, right? So they might have actually been in the home when it sold. They might have sold that house, and they're familiar familiar generally with the area.
Mhm.
So they're going to be able to put together a more accurate value than a number that Zillow is going to spit out, right? So there's so many factors. I mentioned the kitchen, right?
Mhm.
What if your house sits on an acre, right? Maybe there are other properties in the neighborhood all sit on 1 acre or similar sized parcels, but maybe you've got a usable acre. Maybe the other homes that have sold recently, maybe the land is not as usable. Maybe you've got room for an ADU in the backyard. Maybe you have a pool. Maybe you have a horse arena. Maybe everybody else that lives in the area lives on the edge of a cliff, right? So Zillow doesn't know that. They don't know the usability of the land. So that has to be taken into account. If you've got a usable lot and everybody else doesn't, then you probably would want to eliminate or take into account those properties when coming up with the value. Also, eclectic neighborhoods, that's when Zillow really, the numbers are really off. So somebody recently came to me and they were trying to put together a value for a property that was in the family. And they were thinking 1,300,000, 1,350,000. And it was such an eclectic neighborhood. When you took into account the factors in that particular home, which dated back to the late 60s, not much work had been done to the property. So there were some beautiful homes in the area that were built within the last few years. And yes, if you just kind of took into account all the homes that have sold in the neighborhood, it looked like that house was worth over 1,300,000. But when you really dove deeper, the value was about $300,000 less. It was really worth about $1,000,000. So, Zillow doesn't know everything. Estimates are not the final answer, especially if you are in an eclectic area. If you're in a tract home neighborhood, they can be a little bit more accurate. But if you're in an eclectic area or in an area with custom homes, I would just kind of look at this estimate with a grain of salt.
Great. And I do have one final question for you, and that is, how do appraisers take into account estimates from online marketplaces?
The appraiser might just glance at this estimate, but they're not going to use this estimate in their report.
Oh,
Okay, it's not a scientific. It's computer generated, but the appraiser really has to dive deep and to determine that home's value. Look at the upgrades of the home. Look at the usability of the land. Do you have solid walnut doors throughout your house? What kind of upgrades did you do other than the kitchen, right? So all of that has to be taken into account when determining a value. And then an appraiser will be able to eliminate homes that don't make sense. If you're living in a 5,000 square foot house next to a 1,200 square foot bungalow that's 50 years old, that house next door would be not really considered when determining the value of your home.
oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I want to thank you for your time today. That was such great information. And that wraps up this episode of 15 Minutes with Paul Ward. Don't forget to subscribe and never miss a future episode. Paul's contact information is in the show notes. If you have a suggestion for future episodes, please leave that. Also, if you have a few minutes, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It's totally free for you and goes a long way in helping people discover the podcast.
And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Opus Escrow and the Money Store.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.